The Chargers had multiple representatives out at LSU's Pro Day, presumably to watch Malik Nabers, and he went absolutely bananas. Could they actually be interested in him even more than Marvin Harrison Jr.?
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer. And we've been covering the Chargers now together for 8 seasons, but this is our 6th year as a host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you guys, as always, for making us your first listen. We appreciate the everydayers out there, and to everyone who chimed in for today's buy or sell and also mailbag show. But to make sure you don't miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Well, Daniel, Chargers general manager Joe Hortiz and Chargers wide receiver coach Sanjay Lal were in attendance to watch LSU's Pro Day, and I think they were very interested in Malik Nabers, and Malik Nabers absolutely put on a show. He went crazy, and it just gave you another reason to want to make him a member of your football team. And then we got to talk about a lot of other things like Gus Edwards. Could this be his breakout year? Is this going to be his best season? And when is the new identity for the Chargers going to make shape? I think that has to start right now.
It does. I think it's going to happen in layers as well. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. David, we kind of did a different little show today, doing a combination of buy or sells and also some Chargers mailbag questions. You guys seem to love the buy or sells. We have a bunch of them, a bunch of good ones we're not even going to get to today. But we have the first one here from Ivan, whose buy or sell is this: the Chargers are higher on Nabers than Marvin Harrison Jr. So he did have his pro day on Wednesday, which is awesome to see because he lit it up as we expected he would in the things that he decided to do. But what we didn't know was the interest that the Chargers were going to have or who they were going to send. So it was very eye-opening to see not only general manager Joe Hortiz, who has the most important vote on who the pick is going to be at 5, but also Sanjay Lal, who is specifically the Chargers' new wide receiver coach, right? There's no coincidence there. Pointing, to a lot of interest towards Malik Nabers, which shouldn't be surprising. They should be very, very interested. But are you buying or selling that they could be higher on Malik Nabers than Marvin Harrison Jr.?
I'm going to sell it. I think it's definitely good that they're in attendance and that they are watching, because you have to entertain every possible scenario, right? I think at this point in time, it's not unrealistic to think that the Cardinals could stand pat and take Marvin Harrison Jr., and then you have a serious decision that you have to make, whether you want to trade back or whether you feel like you want to take the best wide receiver that's remaining. And I would say the consensus most of the time is that person being Malik Nabers. So I think the Chargers are just doing their due diligence, making sure that they get their eyeballs on a guy that they could potentially take with the 5th overall pick.
Yeah, I'm going to sell that they are more interested in Malik Nabers, at least from what we know, right, and what's actually out there. Yeah. But it wouldn't surprise me. And I think another important thing here is just like, I know we literally just had a show saying, hey, if both are available, we're taking Marvin Harrison Jr. over Malik Nabers. But that's not also to say that, like, if the Chargers took Malik Nabers over Marvin Harrison Jr., I'd still be pretty damn excited about it, right? Like, I wouldn't be crushing them for making a bad pick because I think both of them are so good. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is the better prospect, sure. But Malik Nabers is obviously the more explosive prospect, and he showed that at his pro day, right? Unofficial 4.3, 5.40 time. This is a dude that we already know does a lot of things well, right? So to see that match that what we see on tape, and then the 42-inch vertical, I mean, the record's 44 inches. So to see that kind of explosiveness from Malik Nabers, when you already kind of know he can ball, right? You already know what the tape shows you, but you're just seeing the physical attributes kind of match up to what you already saw, getting more excited. And I would just say this, like, to me, I would be stoked with either one of them, and everything, if it's not one of those two, feels like a little bit of a disappointment to me at this point, because every single day we get closer to the draft, the price for me to trade up to 5 becomes steeper and steeper, because I want one of those two guys, and it makes most sense, and I think, there's a lot of reason to do it, including, shutting up the naysayers of people who say the Chargers won't do it, right? And this was from Jay Lopez, who says, seeing how Harbaugh glorified the offensive line position in his latest interview, buy or sell, Chargers will draft an offensive lineman in the first round, regardless of what wide receiver is available on the board. Thank you for all your hard work in providing daily content. David, this is my nightmare. Are you buying or selling that?
I'm selling that 100,000%. I'm sorry. I just don't think that you can sit here and honestly say that the talent at the offensive line position is superior to that of the wide receiver talent that we know would be available, namely Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Nabers, even, Rome Odunze in that conversation there. I would rather have any of those three than any of the offensive linemen going in the top 10, to be quite honest, whether that's Joe Alt, whether that's any of the other offensive linemen available. I am not interested in an offensive lineman at 5. And I understand that coach is saying how important the offensive line is, but I also see what my eyes are telling me, which is that the Chargers need to add premium wide receiver talent to their wide receiver room.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I'm selling it. I think that the Chargers taking offensive line at 5, no matter what, people, is a little bit overblown. Like, could they do it? Sure. Could they try to make a statement that way? Sure. It would be an obvious reach, right?
Yeah.
And an obvious reach at a position where I don't even think that's the bigger need, which would be super confusing. Like, there's just no way that you can tell me, if they're saying we're going best player available, if they get to 5 and have both receivers there, that you're going to find an offensive lineman that's more, a better player available than either of those two receivers. Even of the 3 receivers, as David said, the 3 receivers and Brock Bowers, for all I care, right?
Exactly.
Like, I would rather have all of those guys before I take an offensive lineman in this draft class. I think all 4 of those guys have better tape and are better prospects than any of the offensive linemen that I've watched in this draft class. So to me, you cannot take an offensive lineman at 5. That is a failure to me. If you want to trade back, I can get a little bit more into it.
Yeah.
But the Ravens, the last 5 years, if we're talking about precedent, they've taken 3 first-round wide receivers, including Zay Flowers last year, and they've taken 1 offensive lineman in the first round in the last 5 years. So if we're going based on his history, right, with Joe Hortiz and the Ravens, it's not like they've taken more linemen in his time than wide receivers in the first round. The hit rate has been pretty spotty, right, but they're picking later in the first round too.
Yeah.
But they've absolutely taken wide receivers, even though the Ravens are about as physical, close to the Harbaugh identity as any team you're going to see out there. So let's sneak this one in here, David, from Herbert10, who asks, buy or sell Chargers not picking an offensive lineman at all in the first 2 rounds?
Yeah, I actually, given everything that I've said, as far as it pertains to the first round, I am going to sell this one just because I do feel like there is a realistic chance that the Chargers take a center in the second round. I do feel like that's a possibility because, yes, I know the Chargers signed Bradley Bozeman, but it's a 1-year vet minimum deal. Okay, I don't think that move precludes them from drafting somebody high in the second round to be able to be your center of the future and have him on a cost-controlled contract and have his rights for 4 years. I do feel like that's something that if the right player is there, like if a Zach Frazier is there in the second round, then yeah, I think you have to sincerely consider making that move and drafting that player.
I think it's close. I could buy it as well, right? Like, I don't think it's a guarantee that they're going to draft an offensive lineman in the first 2 rounds, right? Because I don't think those are their 2 biggest needs. I could easily see them taking a wide receiver and a corner in the first 2 rounds, right? I could see them taking a wide receiver and a defensive tackle in the first 2 rounds. Like, there's so many different ways that they could go with it. I could absolutely see them taking an offensive lineman. I think if they trade back, it becomes much, much more of a likely scenario in the first round for them to take an offensive lineman, because I do think that's kind of where the sweet spot is of where you can get someone who's arguably one of the best players still available to you if you wanted to trade back. I can see it going either way. I don't have a problem buying or selling this one. I think we will see offensive linemen drafted. I think what you've seen with the Ravens is they found talent in starters everywhere along the draft, and Joe Hortiz told you there's talent in every round in the offensive line in this draft. So I wouldn't get sold on, hey, they're absolutely going offensive line 100% with the moves that they've made so far, but I wouldn't say it's not going to happen either. So let's get to more of these Chargers buy or sells and also some more mailbag questions, David, because we have a question about Gus Edwards. Could this be his best season yet with the Chargers in year 1? So we're going to get to that and much more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, though, I do need to tell you guys about the GameTime app, because GameTime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deal on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets that you're start getting hyped for the fun that you're going to have. I think when you're looking for tickets, and just because football season's over doesn't mean the events are, right? One of the things I love the most about GameTime is if you have a night free, just scroll the GameTime app and see what's around you, right? Because not only are you seeing all the fun things that are around you in your area, but you're also seeing exactly the price that you're going to get, and you know that you're getting the best price, because the GameTime guarantee means you're always going to get the best price, because if you find tickets in the same section in a row for less, GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. It gives you all-in prices up front, so you know you're getting a great deal before you even check out. And what they also give you is the view from your actual seat, right? You get to see the exact experience that you're going to have at whatever you're going to. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, David, let's continue these Chargers buy or sells and also getting into these fan mail questions. And thank you to everyone who hit us up at Lockdown LAC and for all of the everydayers out there for flooding our replies with questions and buy or sells. So we'll definitely take you guys into consideration for the future buy or sells and for obviously the mailbag questions as well. But we do have a good one here, David, from Chargers for Life, who's asking, buy or sell, Gus Edwards will have the best season of his career in 2024. I love the podcast. Keep up the great work. Are you buying or selling that?
Yeah, this one's a really, really tough one for me. I'm going to sell it, and the reason why I'm going to sell it is because I think it might take a little bit of time for the Chargers offensive line to gel with a new offensive line coach, with a new rushing scheme, with Greg Roman, bringing his new style and that brand of football. I think it might take a little bit of time for them to get into that rhythm in that respect. But Gus Edwards did have his best efficiency years under Greg Roman, all over 5 yards a carry. Although I would say his best year was probably in 2023 as far as overall stats, when you look at 810 yards and 13 touchdowns. Now, I think he might have more touchdowns because they are planning on giving him the bulk of the short yardage opportunities, the goal line opportunities. They said, hey, we want you to be the guy to go out there and get us through those tough situations. And I think Gus Edwards is definitely built to succeed providing that production for you.
Yeah, I would sell it mainly because in his time with Greg Roman, he did have the most efficient, yards per carry seasons that he's had. But he also had a much smaller role than he had last year under Tom Bunkin, who replaced him in Baltimore, right? When Gus Edwards was the back in Baltimore and Greg Roman was the offensive coordinator there, it was always a backfield by committee. It was always split carries. I mean, last year he had a career high 198 carries under Todd Monken. Before that, he never had more than 144 carries when Greg Roman was his offensive coordinator. So as far as total production goes, I do think it might be tough to hit some of those numbers that he hit last year. I think efficiency-wise, he should be still pretty good. I also think, too, the Ravens have had a much better run-blocking offensive line than the Chargers had, which is important. Scheme or not, the talent that you have up there is important, and we don't think this is going to be maybe how this offensive line looks next year, right? Like, I think it could look a lot different next year, especially with guys like Bradley Bozeman on one-year deals and whoever they take this year to kind of season and learn what this new offense is going to be with Greg Roman. So I don't know if he's going to break out and have this great season. Like, I think he's exactly what the Chargers needed. I think he gives them a stable player to build the rest of that running back room around. But to say he's going to go off and explode under Greg Roman when we never really saw that in their past, in probably a more run-heavy system in Baltimore, right, than what I think is going to happen here, I'm going to sell it. But could there be room for Isaiah Spiller? This is from Edgar Ask, who's saying, buy or sell this. Isaiah Spiller will gain the confidence of this coaching staff and take over Gus Edwards' role as the RB1 for this team. You buying or selling that? Yeah,
as much as I love Isaiah Spiller, and I am a huge Isaiah Spiller fan, I'm going to sell it. And I think for Isaiah, it's one step at a time. Like, let's worry about staying healthy. Let's get through offseason programs. Let's get into training camp. Let's make sure that you're being productive and you're getting on the field. And then let's earn some activation on game time, on game days, right? Yeah. There's just too many times last year where he was a healthy scratch, where he just was not available for the team. Now, I think this is probably the best thing for Isaiah Spiller is to have a whole new coaching staff on the offensive side to be able to give him a fresh, clean slate so he can go out there and try to earn some more playing time, because I still feel like Isaiah Spiller has some skills and some play style that could be effective in this type of run-heavy type of offense, but he's got to earn that responsibility and that respect from his new coaching staff.
Yeah, I do think he's a very, north-south runner. I think he could potentially fit this offense better than he fit with Kellen Moore last year. It's so hard because when Jim Harbaugh is talking about, watching guys, and Joe Hortiz, right, they're talking about watching players on their latest healthy tape, basically, is how they're trying to evaluate these guys, because all this coaching staff has been doing a lot of this time has been trying to see what they have on this roster to plan how they need to attack the rest of filling it out, right? So if you're looking for a healthy Isaiah Spiller tape at the NFL level, it just doesn't exist, right? Like, there's not enough to exist. You get a good feeling of what Isaiah Spiller is on, and at the professional level.
Yeah.
Came in better shape in year 2 than he did in year 1. Maybe he has another transformation under Ben Herbert. I feel like this coaching staff is going to give him a chance, but I 100% believe they're going to draft a running back, and I think the running back they draft has a better chance than Isaiah Spiller to take the RB1 spot away from Gus Edwards than Isaiah Spiller does from what we've seen so far, right? I think the draft will also tell you how they feel about him, and I think it's not a coincidence that you also see someone like J.K. Dobbins, who's visiting the Chargers, today, right? Why would they be so interested if they're super high on Isaiah Spiller? Because I think there's a good chance they could sign someone like a J.K. Dobbins and also draft a running back. And where does that leave Isaiah Spiller? I think Isaiah Spiller has as much chances of being on the roster bubble and having a hard time making this team as he does taking over the RB1 spot for this team. With the new regime, with coaches that don't have any ties to him, with a GM that didn't draft him, right?
Yeah.
It's tough. I see such a wide range of outcomes that could happen with Isaiah Spiller. I have to believe if he comes in great shape with Ben Herbert and he works with these guys, if he comes in and impresses in training camp and in the in preseason and things like that, that he's going to have a chance to earn a role with this team, even though Greg Roman's going and getting guys that he already knows, right? I have to think with this new coaching staff, those guys are going to be given a chance. It's just hard to know because we just haven't seen enough of Isaiah Spiller to make that determination. But let's get to this next one here from Ollie, who's asking, buy or sell the Chargers draft more than 2 players from Michigan. Love the pod, guys. This is a tough one, David, because I think 2 is the number. Like 1.5, I think would be the over/under. If FanDuel needs anything from me, 1.5, I think was the over/under on Michigan players drafted by the Chargers. But there's so many Michigan players that would make so much sense for the Chargers, not just because they played with Jim Harbaugh and Jesse Minter, right? But also because they fit big needs for what the Chargers currently need. So are you buying or selling this?
Yeah, I said more than 2. I'm going to sell because I think I'm at
Let's say
2.
2 or more.
Yeah,
2 or more.
Okay. So at 2 or more, I can buy that. Yeah, because I think it will be 2. There are several different options of Michigan players that would make sense for the Chargers. Mikey Sanderstill, the corner, that would make a ton of sense. Junior Colson, another guy that makes a ton of sense. Chris Jenkins, another guy that makes a ton of sense. But also, there's a running back that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, a guy who just got done scoring 27 touchdowns in college football by the name of Blake Corum. Obviously, Blake Corum, we all know, is a little bit of an older prospect, and I think that is definitely going to make some teams shy away. But I don't think the Chargers are one of those teams because Jim Harbaugh was his head coach. So he knows exactly what Blake Corum brings to the table, the type of runner that he is and the type of man that he is. He understands all the character stuff on the field, off the field. I would not be surprised in the slightest if the Chargers took Blake Corum with maybe one of those 4th-round picks that they have.
If we're saying, 2 or more, I'd probably sell it, even though, the Chargers have 9 draft picks. A lot of guys that make a lot of sense. A lot of those guys are going to be picked in the, a good portion in the top 3 rounds. So there's only so many guys you could get, right? Yeah, I mean, Roman Wilson, another guy, right?
Exactly,
another guy that would make a lot of sense for them. Feels like Blake Corum is super likely for them if he's around at a certain point in this draft.
Yeah.
This is the interesting thing. Jim Harbaugh's come from college to the NFL before, right?
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh's 49ers team took 0 Stanford players in the 4 years that Jim Harbaugh was the 49ers coach. So just because he had all those guys at Stanford didn't necessarily mean that they were coming with him to the NFL, right?
That's a good point.
A little different because you have Jesse Minter now, right? Who's your defensive coordinator and, likes a lot of these guys and needs some of these guys for sure. And also, Jim Harbaugh got to pick his GM this time.
Yeah.
Right? He handpicked, as much as they say they didn't, right? Jim Harbaugh handpicked Joe Hortiz.
Yeah.
He gave the sign-off for it. He inherited Trent Baalke, right? So the relationship wasn't the same.
Right,
So
100%.
I could see it being different and them drafting some Michigan players. How many is, yeah, man, that's a wild card. It could go a lot of different directions. But we do have more to get into, including a voicemail from the infamous Atir calling into today's show, and he's tired of people saying it's going to take a while for this new identity and new culture to set in. But we're getting into more and some rapid fire buyer sells and Chargers mailbag on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, though, I do need to tell you guys about FanDuel because right now is one of the best betting times of the season. The biggest college basketball tournament that goes on is happening right now. Single game elimination. The stakes are as high as they get, and they're kicking back off today with some huge games, lots of good games coming up, so you can say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Guessing all of your brackets are busted at this point. If there's someone out there that's not, please correct me in the YouTube comments. Send me a DM at Dan Talk Sports. For most of you, the brackets are busted, but that doesn't mean the tournament is over because you have so many games that you can bet on with FanDuel. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a one seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. You can pick the biggest favorite in the world. You put $5 on it, and you can get $200 back in bonus bets to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all if you win that $5 bet. So all you have to do it, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. David, I want to go a little bit rapid fire here with some of these last questions because we have a lot of buyer, sells, and Chargers mailbag questions to get into. But I do want to tell everyone to make sure they're checking out Locked On Sports Today, the first ever 24/7 national sports streaming channel, giving you access to every sports 24/7, giving you the insight from the local experts that only people covering their team every day can give you. So make sure you guys go subscribe to Locked On Sports Today. David, let's get into this from a tier. He's not happy. He usually isn't. I mean, he comes with the fire. He has more for us today. Let's hear what he's got.
David, this is Atir. I love you, my baby. Okay, I heard this before. It's making me sad. Team identity is 3 or 4 games into the regular season. We have OTA. We have minicamp. We have training camp. That's how you build a team identity. You don't wait to the regular season. That is my question. What is going on? Can you please make me happy, my babe, and explain to me why do they keep saying team identity is into the regular season? Why do you wait? You wasted all these times for nothing. And you too, Dan. Love you, my baby. Thank you.
I love you. David, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for me, the identity started right away when the Chargers decided to hire Jim Harbaugh. I think that was step number one, is saying, hey, we're not going to go get another first-time head coach. We're going to get a legit guy who's won a lot of football games and a guy that we know has that kind of pedigree. Then it continued with Jim Harbaugh's press conference, clearly identifying what he said his mission was, the type of team that he wants to bring, physical, and what they want to do, which is to win multiple championships. That is exactly what this identity starts at, is being able to say, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is who we're going to be. Then it continues every stop of the way with the type of players that the Chargers have brought in free agency, how they are going to approach their offseason programs. It's built all throughout the offseason. It's not just something that happens in the season. It starts from the very beginning, and then it's the hard work every single day that follows that helps to build and cultivate that identity.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with it already starting. I do think it is something that's layered, right? And I think the question here is just how long is it going to take before this team takes on Jim Harbaugh's identity? And I think part of it won't happen until, a few games into the regular season. Part of it won't happen this season, right? Like, unless they go and win the Super Bowl, obviously, it's like, hey, then you can, go ahead and say that the culture is here. The culture, identity, however you want to call it, right? But yeah, it is something that I think is layered, and it's over time. It already has started, right, with him and his approach with the players, and also the way that they have traded Keenan Allen and cut Mike Williams, and the way that they've handled some of those things from a much more business decision and got guys to take pay cuts, like Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. But there's a certain extent of, if you're going to be, your identity, right, is being physical and being a hard-nosed team, and teams aren't going to want to play us, how can that happen at all until you put pads on? It can't, right? Yeah. So, you instill the message, you get guys working hard, you can condition hard, you can do everything right, you can put more focus on the fundamentals. But until you get shoulder pads on and show you can be that physical type of player that this team wants now, It can't happen, right? Another thing is, if we're talking about changing the identity of this team, the identity is blowing leads and doing charging type of things. You can't do that until you start winning games. You can't do that until you're up in the fourth quarter and you grind a team out and beat them. Until you have a big lead in the fourth quarter and you comfortably win the game. You can't change those things until it happens. So I do think that the identity is already changing, but there are certain things that you're not going to be able to prove until you put the pads on, until you start winning some games. So let's get to this next one here from John Clark, who has a buy or sell for us. 2 or more trades, buy or sell, in the top 5 picks. What do you think?
I'm selling that. I only really expect there to be one trade in the top 5. I think that's probably the Vikings coming up to 4 or 5 to get their quarterback. But I think the first 3 picks are pretty much guaranteed to be quarterback, and quarterback. And I think there's a very strong chance that 4th pick could be a quarterback as well. So I think that it's just one trade for me. So I'm selling it.
I guess I'd have to sell it right now. I think it's more than possible, though, and I think it has a lot to do with this. Are the Patriots going to be sold at whatever quarterback comes to them at number 3? And how badly do the Raiders and Broncos want to move up, right? Because I think everyone's assuming that everyone is sold on the top 4 picks, and the Vikings will be willing to trade up to pick 4 to take whatever quarterback's there. Or does it have to be a certain quarterback? Could they try to trade up higher to make sure they get the quarterback that they want?
Yeah.
Could Washington throw a wrench in things and take J.J. McCarthy at 2, right? Like, there's so many things that could happen. There's never been 4 quarterbacks picked in a row in NFL history to start a draft. So I think a lot of things can happen. I think a lot of it has to do with how much do the Raiders and Broncos want to move up, because those are the 2 teams that you could see mortgaging their future to try to go get a quarterback, which brings us to Nene here, who's asking this: buy or sell? Will the Chargers trade with division rivals, a.k.a. the Faders or the Donkeys, for that 5th pick to help them get a quarterback? David, are you trading with them if you're helping them get their franchise quarterback?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm not doing anything to trade, to do anything to try to help a division rival whatsoever. So I'm definitely selling that. I don't think that that's smart business in any way, shape, or form. For them to try to get the most important player on their franchise and in their team, no, not happening.
I think it depends how you feel about that player, right? I'm buying it because the thing is, to me, is like, I don't like the directions that any of those teams are going, the Broncos or the Raiders. I think both of them could be disastrous in 2025 or in 2024. So if you're telling me that 2025 pick, like, not only can I give them a quarterback that they might ruin anyways, right? And that could just not be a good player anyways. And then you want to be a bad team in 2024, and then you want to give me your 2025 first round pick, which might be a top 5 pick, because you guys could be dumpster fires in 2024.
It's a good point.
I could demolish them. I could totally be their demise. They could mortgage their future, get a bad pick anyways that doesn't work out, and then I get to reap the benefits of how bad of a team you're still going to be, right? So I'm laughing in your face when you think next year you're going to fix it, because guess what? We have your first round pick. Fix it with what? You know what I mean? So I would say this: division rival, the price goes up.
Oh,
it's going way up, right? Yeah. You're mortgaging your future. I want a 2025 first. I want a 2025 second. I want a 2024 third. I need a haul. And I need a haul for those receivers that are going to be available potentially anyways. But if you're a division rival, I'll let you mortgage and potentially derail your franchise if you want to mortgage your future and work without a first round pick for the next 3 years, right?
I'm with you.
If that's the case, take it. Take it. Pick the wrong guy. Ruin him anyways. It's what the Raiders do. Broncos, we'll see, right? But you're talking about them maybe potentially sending multiple first-round picks, maybe multiple second-round picks to get the 4th best quarterback in the draft, because that's what we're talking about, or the 4th picked quarterback.
I'm good with that. Yeah, I'm good with that.
The worse you are, the better picks I get later down the road, right? So it sucked to, pass up on some really good receivers, obviously, but if you're talking about generational wealth in draft capital, hey, I could be persuaded for sure, but the price is going to be way up there. So come get it if you want it. But that's going to wrap things up for today's show. We have a very special episode on tomorrow's show because it's me, David, and the guys from the Chargers Unleashed, Jake Hefner and Dan W. joining the show. Can't wait for this big Chargers crossover. Can't wait to do it. Wolkenstein just recently said that he would take Malik Nabers over Marvin Harrison Jr. We'll get into that and so much more. To make sure you don't miss it, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. Thank you to everyone who hit us up in the mailbag today. And for the buy or sells, we'll let you guys do buy or sells more often because we can see that you love them. If you guys want to do that, thanks for hitting us up at Locked On LAC. That's always where we put the posts out. You can also hit us up on Instagram at Locked On Chargers and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. And thanks to Atir and everyone else who called into the voicemail line at 323-524-7924. You can also find me on Twitter at Dan Talk Sports, David Drogmeyer at DroTalkSD, and his DMs are always open if you have a question about this Chargers team. But Chargers Unleashed, Locked On Chargers crossover tomorrow. Make sure you guys are here for that. But until then, take it easy and go Bolts.